Good morning everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. Let me just share my screen and we will get going. Thank you all so much for being here today, for joining us as we present our IBT Online webinar for Nadec, Benefit from the Future of Online Sales. Hopefully you can all see my screen now, I'm hoping. Here we go. We're very pleased today to be presenting on the future of online business, B2B sales, everybody. And hold on, let's see if we can do this a bit better. Sorry about this. We're going to have to get things a bit better up here. Hopefully now you can all see this. There we go. This should be, at long last, better for you all, I'm hoping. Here. Sorry about that, folks. We had a little technical issue. We're now on the right road. So apologies. Helping America's exporters sell online globally. Here we go. Nadec, benefit from the future of online B2B sales. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to try and make this as fast and as efficient as possible for a webinar for you today. We know you're all sort of webinared out, so we're grateful that you could attend and join us today. A quick word, just while I see the last of you logging on, a quick word on who's presenting today. First of all, for ourselves, as a company, we're called IBT Online. IBT stands for International Business Technologies Online. And we are focused on the online world, on websites and online marketing for exporters especially. So we are bang in right where you need to be for Nadec and for Nadec members. We have developed something called the Online Global Programs. These are provided across many different US states, and for many of them, there's even grant funding to help exporters get great websites and online marketing tools to help them grow their business internationally. We are really pleased today to have Jonathan Zooks, President of Advanced Super Abrasives Inc. And Jonathan, I'm sure is known to many of you as well at Nadec, as he's played such a prominent role there. But today he's talking really from the point of view of a U.S. company based in North Carolina who has a little bit of an exporter story to tell. And I'll let Jonathan walk through that little story and give you some of his anecdotes on his sort of experience and share that with you. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague Andrew Lawler, Online Business Development Manager at IBT. He's based in Michigan and is one of our IBT onliners. So our agenda today, we're going to start off with talking about sort of why digital and why now. You know, why should we be doing these digital tools? What's in it? Why should we bother? Then Jonathan's going to talk about Advanced Super Abrasives and how they've used online tools, what they're doing with it now, how their experience, was it difficult, was it easy, how they're going about it, what's the future look like, and so on. And then we're going to take back the mic and talk you through what are localized websites. What does it mean to have websites that work for you internationally? If an exporter wants a global website, what does that actually mean for them? And then how do you use them? How do you use these localized websites? You know, you use them as a springboard for online marketing. But again, what does that mean for you as an exporter if you want to reach your global or your target international markets? We've left some time at the end for takeaways, next steps, Q&A. So please do drop your questions into the chat box. We'll be very happy to address them all towards the end of the presentation. Right, then I'm going to pass over to Andrew to talk a little bit about sort of the why of the whole equation. Andrew.
Yep, thanks so much to Dana. Thanks for the introduction and pleasure to be speaking here to you all and part of the Nadec. This first section is all about digital, why now. in the section here, we're going to be talking about some statistics that we've seen through some other trusted organizations and share that with you today. On the first slide, it's some information and resources that we've gathered from SAP, and ultimately about why digital selling professionals have now evolved, and what are some of the things that have changed over the last year, over the last 2 years. Ultimately, digital selling decreases expenses because digital selling doesn't include flying around the world, staying in hotels, Ubering from meeting to meeting, or even expensive dinners. I mean, digital selling is not requiring your sales team to spend a majority of their time in cars or planes, or just spending hours and hours of time for just one meeting. Digital selling is a very virtual environment, and it's meant for activities that it's not supposed to be canceled by a pandemic or affected by a canceled conference. As SAP points out here, there's a better way to conduct sales now, so you don't have to spend as much time on the road. Ultimately, the world is online, and just to get through a few strategies for success that can help you go digital and reach your customers across the globe. Again, the world is online, and that allows businesses to stay connected with their clients, their prospects, their future employees and suppliers through two different objectives and two different business development tools, which we'll be touching on through this presentation. One being localized websites and the other being online marketing. And as we look at some of the online trends that we've seen over the past few years, over the past few months, we could point out two big trends here. One on the left, we can see the continuous increase of co-working spaces worldwide, people working virtually, working online through things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams meetings or through GoToMeeting. And the obvious uptick on the right side of the screen, you can see the Zoom usage skyrocketing right after the pandemic, but continuing to increase as more people get integrated into the online world and are continuing to use the internet to interact with their prospects, their clients, their partners. And wanted to share with you a few different statistics that we've gained from our partners at Hootsuite. Here you see a bunch of different statistics, but ultimately the real data point that I want to point out here is that 5/8 of the entire world are using the internet at this very moment, which is a magnificent number, and it's only growing. We can see that the average time spent online and on the internet is about 7 hours per day. And this again continues to grow and grow. So you can imagine that 5/8 of the total worldwide population is spending on average 7 hours of their day online, researching, conducting their work, and also talking with their prospects, their clients, their partners. Again, it continues to grow, and on this next slide, we'll see how internet users are growing at a steadily pace of 4% annually. Now, to you and I, it might seem like a small number as far as 4% goes, but this ultimately amounts to 192 million people that are added to the internet space, to the digital realm per year. I mean, in fact, a fantastic number to see, and this is something that only continues to go up as we've seen as a trend in the past few years. So, touching on some digital strategies, what does this all mean? Digital strategies are no longer an optional complement to your business, but now it's more seen as a necessity to seeing future success. And just to talk about the digital strategies, the future business success that we have seen, it's my pleasure to introduce you Jonathan Zusch of Advanced Super Abrasives to discuss his online journey.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Susanna, and thank you, DEC members and business professionals for joining this webinar. Again, my name is Jonathan Zusch with Advanced Super Abrasives. I am your current Nadec Vice Chair, but I'm here to talk to you about my day job, because we all have day jobs, and that's what we're here. We want to see, what's a true exporter story. What is Advanced Super Abrasives? What do we do? So in short, we make grinding wheels, and all of you are probably saying, what's a grinding wheel? What does it do? Well, the easiest way I can explain it to you is that a grinding wheel is used in everything from automotive, aerospace, medical industry, energy, could be green energy, could be your typical energy, oil and natural gas, anything that you can imagine that's high precision really has to be ground. If you want to talk about probably the thing that's maybe affected you the most in the past couple of years, I would say if you got a COVID vaccine or a COVID vaccine booster shot and the needle went in your arm and it didn't hurt, thank you to us because our wheels ground those needle tips that all went into your arms. If it did hurt, I'm sorry, it was probably a competitor's wheel for whatever reason, I don't know why. But we have been busy, obviously in the medical industry making things, not only for COVID vaccines, but also for, bone joint replacements, things like that. But we're an exporter right here in rural Western North Carolina in the mountains, and we're selling to 28 countries around the world. And like most businesses, we would travel, meet our customers in person, go to trade shows, everything like that. And as we know, February, March 2020, everything shut down. We could no longer do that. We were just forced to stay home. How do we reach our customers? What do we do? So we started looking at our website, and this is our old website that you see the slide there. All of you can see we made the cardinal sin of Google Translator in the middle of the screen there. We were really, our website was just a placeholder for us. What's it going to do? Is it going to bring us any money? No, it's just people go there, they get our phone number and they call us, And with COVID hitting and us not being able to travel, we said, maybe there's more to this digital stuff because Amazon and everybody are doing really well, and all these online platforms are selling products and stuff. How can we use online digital strategies? So we got together with IBT Online, and we not only revamped our website, but we said, let's pick 2 markets. So we picked Canada and Mexico as our 2 markets. And this is our new website. As you can see, a lot better. You can see all the industries that I've mentioned and even more. And how do we highlight our business? How do we get more business there? How do we really reach out to customers? And I was hearing from our distributors and our reps in Canada and Mexico that, hey, we're cold calling people, and we really need some help. So we looked at the digital strategy and working with IBT Online. So we did create a website for Mexico and a website for Canada. And almost immediately with Mexico, my reps down there were calling me and saying, hey, we were going from cold calling to getting 10 RFQs a week now. Now we're getting 10 requests for quote a week. And they were saying, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's changing? And in Canada, our distributors up there were calling and saying, hey, we've got an influx of RFQs, and hey, do you guys make this? Hey, do you guys make that? What are you guys doing differently? And so what we did is we created these localized websites in Canada and Mexico, but then we also did a digital marketing strategy. So we were hitting, Facebook in Mexico, LinkedIn in Canada very heavily. Not that we didn't hit these platforms in those countries, but every country, they tend to gravitate more towards one platform than the other. And what we found with Mexico was that WhatsApp, which most of you probably have because you travel around the world and you have people all around the world that want to text you or whatever, so you got the WhatsApp app and everybody's texting globally. We found that WhatsApp was one of the biggest marketing tools for us in Mexico. And so you're probably asking yourself, okay, well, that's great. You guys went live, you guys did this digital marketing strategy. How did it pay off? Well, last year in 2021, we did more in export revenue to Mexico than the previous 15 years combined. In Canada, we were able to increase over 25%. We were hoping to get to 30, but we increased over 25%. And Canada was a very big market for us because we do woodworking and other industries, automotive and stuff that are very heavily invested into Canada. And so, for us to have an almost 30% growth in Canada, but exponential growth in Mexico, what's that done for us now? You say, okay, well, you did that. Well, what we decided to do was we are now in the process, and we will by the end of this year, hiring at least one ASI full-time salesperson in Mexico because we have that much call for our product now. And we started out like most companies, and IBT does a great job of this, and they can show you, these are all social media marketing examples that you see for Canada and Mexico. They help build our brand awareness in Mexico and Canada. And we shifted our strategy from 2021 to 2022 in that we no longer just want to have our brand awareness. We are actually targeting specific markets. So in Mexico, most of you know, with all this nearshoring and supply chain crises, a lot of the medical device manufacturing is moving into Mexico, a lot of that into Tijuana area, Chihuahua. Those areas seem to be real hotbeds for the medical industry. So we went to IBT and we said, hey, look, we would really like to target in 2022 our social media marketing campaigns geographically and by market segment. And so we've come up with a plan, and we're doing that right now. We're targeting just medical device manufacturers in Mexico in 3 geographical locations. And IBT has been great about posting, information on our LinkedIn, on Facebook, on our WhatsApp, things that go out, Google click ads, things like that, but just targeting that particular market industry and in those geographical locations. So I'm not getting, somebody in the Yucatan Peninsula that has no idea about medical device manufacturing reaching out to me saying, well, what is this? I'm really targeting my customers. And so that's how we are doing. As a matter of fact, in Canada, we're doing obviously a big woodworking and automotive push for the second half of this year because it's our goal and our desire that this automotive supply chain crisis will start easing fourth quarter this year, first quarter next year. So we want to make sure that we're front and center of our customers or potential customers in Canada in those markets. So this is what online globalization, social media marketing, digital marketing, this is what it can do for your company. It can really transform what you're doing internationally. And I'm happy to say that ASI, before the end of 2022, we will add 2 more markets for localized websites. We're going to add one in the UK, and we're going to add one in South Korea. So some markets that we've had some moderate success in, not like Canada and Mexico, where we've been very established, but markets that we've basically deemed as the next hotbeds for our particular industry and what we are looking for in the future. And I can't say enough about IBT Online. What's great about them is they come to you with a whole bunch of keywords and a whole bunch of things for SEO optimization, and they really help you and walk you through this. And you're probably saying to yourself, okay, how long is this going to take me? I always get that question. Is it going to take an exorbitant amount of time? It doesn't, and I'll tell you why. You see all the pictures and things that you have there? These are all things all of you have laying around. Years and years of marketing material that you guys have laying around, or videos or whatever. And IBT just really helps you take all that information and put it into a package and in a way that your customers or potential customers really, it draws them into your website. It draws them into contacting you. It draws them into clicking that action button and requesting a quote or more information. And so I highly suggest that all of you, take stock of this and just look at everything that you already have, and don't look at this as a mountain that you can't climb, because like I said, IBT has been great. They really focus on keyword searches, because everybody in every industry has your own keywords that you use, your own slang, so to speak, where you say, hey, we use grinding wheels here, or we may say super abrasives there, or whatever in my particular industry. Those are keyword searches, and each one of your own industries, you're going to have that. And what's great is when you're doing, let's say, social media marketing or digital marketing with IBT, you can target certain keywords there as well. And that's very, very important that you do that and that you look at that. And they will reach out to you and say, okay, what is your salespeople? What are your people hearing out in the industry as to keywords? This is what we have. Here's our list. Now you pick and choose and add and subtract what you think is needed. And so, IBT really does have the whole package. But for our growth as a small rural business, it's been very key. We did not, during the pandemic, have to lay anybody off. We actually grew during the pandemic, which a lot of companies either had to furlough or reduce hours. Or ASI didn't have to do that. And I can point to actually doing this process with IBT Online and having globalized websites. Because like I said, Mexico was busy at times, Canada was busy at times during the pandemic, Brazil, other countries. And you know what? When the customers see that you have a website localized, they know you're invested. And when they know you're invested in their country, they tend to want to buy more products from you. And anybody that's dealt with any Latin American countries that's on this webinar knows that until, when we used to visit in person, until you get invited to the family dinner, you're really not doing business. But when you're invited to the family dinner, that's when in Latin America, they've invited you in to actually be a friend and to actually conduct business with them. So I will say that this online social media marketing and the websites really has allowed us to kind of go to the dinner table, but from afar. And that's because they feel with all the social media and digital marketing and your website that you're there in that country and you're vested in it. So, I'm going to turn it back over to Susanna and Andrew because I know I've taken quite a bit of my time here, and we'll save the rest for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. That was really, really interesting to hear, and all that voyage and that exporter's journey that you're accounting. I know we're going to save the questions to the end, but there is one I think that's quite interesting, which is just someone saying, we have a distributor model. Do the distributors get involved, or does it turn them off? In other words, with having these websites, does it detract from distributors?
So I can tell you for our Canadian distributors, it did not. It actually helped them because they could point to a website for more information. So if you're in manufacturing and you're doing SDS sheets, or let's say you're in service industry and you have videos or something, this will help to push people towards those tools and resources that your distributors are doing. And it's not a .com. Nobody wants to be, if you're in Canada, Mexico, Brazil, or anywhere in the world, South Korea, I don't care where you're at. You don't want to go to a .com to get a resource. You want to go to what you would consider a local resource. So if you're in Mexico and it's a .mx or a .ca or a .br for Brazil, that means a lot to you. So we found that our distributors found it very supportive and helpful because they had those resources available that was localized. So again, they didn't have to come, it's like, think about it this way. You need help and the local person comes in. Or you need help and you have to fly to the US and you're from a foreign country. This is the way that these customers and these distributors look at that. When you have something localized and you have resources for them to use, they take it as this is a supportive thing. This is not you undercutting your distributors or your reps. This is a supportive thing. And what you can do with your distributors is make them a part of the process. Hey, what keywords do you think we should have? Also, you may want to promote your distributor or distributors on your localized website. I would highly suggest that. We do that in certain cases where we say, hey, if you're in this particular geographical area, here's the distributor for that area, here's the distributor for this area, and that helps the distributors so that they don't feel like they're losing business. They're getting their company name on your website, localized in their language with the resources they need and the support that you're giving them. So I would say that in our scenario and everything I have seen in working with our distributors, they have been very supportive of it and been very involved in it. As a matter of fact, our monthly meetings that we have with IBT Online, and that's the one thing I guess I forgot to say, they will have a monthly meeting with you to go over your digital media package and what you're doing for this month, next month, quarter, 6 months, year down the road. They'll also go through your website traffic, talking about who visited your website, how long have they been on these pages, what seems to be the particular products people are looking at most. In every one of those meetings that we've had with IBT, we've had our distributors, or our reps. So with Mexico, we've had those people on the calls with IBT. And they have told IBT, hey, look, this social media marketing thing, could we tweak this a little bit? Because I'm getting calls or requests for quote on something that, we really don't want to be involved in. So can we tweak this social media this way or tweak it that way? Or, they'll see something coming in a particular industry and they'll ask IBT while we're on the call with them to say, hey, can we change the social media a little bit this way and a little bit that way? Now, your distributors are not going to have carte blanche with IBT, so don't take this the wrong way that they're going to call IBT and say, make this change, make that change. What I'm saying is that IBT invites, and we have invited, and this has worked very well, our distributors to be on the call with IBT to discuss marketing packages for their industries in their country. So, this is what I would highly suggest, and it's worked very, very well with us. We've not had any distributors or reps or anybody get upset about it. Like I said, they feel like we're fully supporting them locally instead of just being we're here in the US and they're wherever they're at.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave there's a whole bunch of other questions that have come in, Jonathan, but I'm going to leave them to the end. But before I give back to Andrew to talk a little bit about, I just want to ask you all, on this webinar, but this webinar is for you guys, so it's really, ask the questions. It's just us. So, go ahead. We wanted to ask you for your companies, the companies that you're representing, or for yourself, are you already using your website? Are you already using online marketing to drive your sales? Or is the website sort of parked in the background somewhere, like an online phone book? And just to give you a little bit of response, a lot of you, I'd say the majority, are already using it in a few international markets. That seems to be the majority. There is quite a significant number of you who are not using it yet at all, and I hope that this webinar helps you get the confidence to go ahead and launch on that. And then there's a very, very few of you who are using it extensively, both in the USA and globally. But I want also to thank you all for clicking on your mouse so quickly and so reactively. Thank you very much. Close that poll. And then I'm going to pass back to Andrew to talk us a little bit about what are these online tools? What is a localized website anyway? Andrew?
Yeah, thanks so much, Suzanne, and thank you, Jonathan, for your testimony on your story and your process and how you've worked with us. I know it's been a pleasure working with you and your team thus far. And just to expand a little bit and to touch on some of the resources, the business development tools, this first section is going to be dedicated to talking about localized websites, some of the benefits, why it works, why businesses are seeing success with it. But before I do, just to touch on the interrelation between both websites and online marketing, because they are very much interrelated to each other. You can see that they're the core online business development tools that we're here to talk about. And that includes both websites and online marketing. So in this section, we're going to be dedicated to discussing just about the websites and ultimately the first part to creating more digital real estate and starting your online journey. And this next slide we'll talk about, it's pretty interesting in terms of how we see and how we've seen yesterday's world versus today's world and the digital landscape that has been presented to us and how that shapes more of a customer-centric approach. In yesterday's world, the relationships used to be very much a one-way street, talking to customers, to partners communicating to your company, and then speaking to other customers. And now in today's digitally focused world, you can see that see how customer-centric our relationship tree has become. Everyone can collaborate with anyone, and that's ultimately the point of being digital, is that you're able to be out there and talking to the people that you're looking to talk to. So what does this look like in practice? And on this slide, you can see that you can think of your websites as real estate and digital real estate. In the US market, in your domestic market, you can have a website and its own communication policy surrounding it. You can have your SEO and social media to draw in clients and prospects into your US website. And for your international clients and prospects, you would need a similar online environment, real estate within their market. So just as an example, we could say, you're targeting the French market and also the Brazilian market. So that would lead us to say you'd also need a dedicated localized website with its own search engine, social media marketing strategy that acts as a springboard for your communications, very much like how you have for the US market. And it can all feed back to your US website, and certainly it should all be linked together. Of course, brand consistency is very important to note here. When you look at your French or Brazilian website, they should look and feel the same as your US website, but obviously localized for those markets. And then and only then can your online communications be effective to those markets. So just as a takeaway, make sure that you have localized websites first, and then the online marketing can come back afterwards, again, to act more of a springboard back to your US or to your localized website, and act as a real estate, clear goals, have the buyer mapping journey, the metrics, and all the other essentials that we're going to continue to talk about today. And that ultimately brings us to a very popular question, a very important question that we get asked quite often. Why can't I just use my US website to go global? And the answer to that, in short, is Google, or many other search engines which are localized for a certain target audience. We have a couple of screenshots here, and just describes how Google is used in different markets. You can see that there's google.co.uk, there's google.ar, google.mx, and they're all very different from each other. And I believe that Google, just by itself, although there's Bing, there's Yahoo, there's other search engines that people use around the world, Google itself has 192 versions of itself. And they're all localized depending on the market and depending on the users that are looking for relevant search results. So let's take it a step further and look at an example of how this actually works in practice. We have a nice example, 2 screenshots here of the same search query. One for myself here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the US, and one from our colleague who's based out in London, UK. So you can see my search query was done on google.com, and it was done with squeakless dog toys. We both had dogs, and so we thought, why not? Let's try it out and see what results we come up with. In my result query, you can see that these are things that you and I are very familiar with, Amazon.com, Chewy.com, Yahoo.com. However, for the colleague that's in London, with the same search query of squeakless dog toys, she got something that was completely different. They got things that I've never heard of before: lordsandlabradors.co.uk, bettyandbutch.co.uk, or even amazon.co.uk. So just to say that, depending on where you're at, where you're located, search engines are going to be driving the relevant search results depending on where your users are and what's relevant to them. So when you're creating a localized website, there's plenty of things that you can be mindful of, but most notably is the language, the dialects, the verbiage that you use, very much as Jonathan described, the certain keywords or nuances that are important to your business. Here's a good example of an automobile parts exporter that we work with, and we wanted to export automobile parts to both Mexico and to Spain. And so after conducting research in both of these markets, you can see that the English word car is used in a couple of different formats in both of these markets. In Mexico, you can see that 75% of the searchers will be using the word auto. And in Spain, almost everybody is using the word coche. So that's why it's so important that even though you're creating a Spanish translation to reach Latin America or to Spain, it's important to take a step beyond just simple translations and to look at what your target audience is actually searching up, what's actually relevant to them. Because if you were to use something like auto in Spain, no one's going to be finding your company, and no one's going to be seeing that as relevant search results because that's just not commonly used there. And then, I know we've been touching on certain points of a localized website, and this is a nice summary and description of, what exactly goes into a localized site to become relevant to a local buyer, to become relevant to your international buyers, who you want to become in front of. And ultimately, there's a lot that we have in this list here. I'll just name through a few of them. For example, having a registered domain name like .mx, .ca, .ar, .co.uk. Having that domain name, top level domain name in your URL is extremely important. Being able to navigate the languages through country flags, create the website with mobile first in mind. A lot of people say, mobile adapted, mobile enabled, but mobile first is ultimately what you're looking for. Adapting the design per the culture or regulatory standards, being keen on their local language, as we saw on the last slide, being keen on their culture, conducting keyword research to be optimized, found on the search engines, hosting within their market using the correct content management system, or CMS for short, and obviously there's plenty of regulations that go into place. So as you can see, there's a lot of tips, there's a lot of things to think of when you're looking at creating an international website. But ultimately, all of these are important to target your end user in that top international market. And that finally brings me to the very end of what I'm here to speak about, and it brings me to the online global programs that are here to help our exporters grow their export sales brand business. And before we jump into a poll led by Susanna, I'll leave you by saying, what would happen to your business if your exports grew 30% year on year, just like our clients? So that's over to you, Susanna, for a poll.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, we just wanted to ask, if any of you are interested in learning more about website localization. Andrew's given a really succinct summary of what is a localized website, and then you heard sort of Jonathan some of the experiences of it. But if you'd like us to reach out or send you more stuff through emails or show you some links where you can learn more about it, then let us know, and we can forward those links and get in touch with you. And again, hey, thank you. You're all very, very quick on responding. Thank you. I really appreciate that. We really appreciate that very much. Okay, I'm going to close this poll now, and then just talk to you a little bit about how do we use this. So we talked about the why. We've talked about what. We talked about the why, which is that the world is online. If you remember those numbers from Jonathan, from Andrew, sort of 5 billion people nearly are online on an average of 7 hours a day. So that's the why. We've talked about what, which are localized websites and localized business development online tools. Now let's talk about how you use them. One of the things I think it's important to remember if you're looking at sales, and if you're looking at driving your top line, is that, the buyer's journey, and whether that's in your US market or your domestic market or international markets, your buyer's journey is punctuated by events. That could be a trade show, a product launch, a meeting, an email, e-shot, whatever it is. It's the events that punctuate this buyer's life cycle. And the point, I think, about online tools is that they allow you to create more events, basically, via your website and via online marketing. And that means if you're creating more events, particularly that are events that have the buyer in mind, it's not outbound sort of cold calling events. It's really saying, we have information which is interesting for you. Here's some of it. Here are the events that'll trigger that knowledge. And those are opportunities for you to connect with your prospective buyers and therefore lead them along that buyer's journey. One of the first things you need to know in terms of your international markets, of course, is your buyer persona. Who is your prospective buyer in those markets? And here's a couple of questions you might want to ask yourself. Are those international buyer personas, are they different from my domestic market? In what way are they different? In what way does that buyer's journey differ from my domestic buyer's journey? And in many ways, localizing your website can be really just making sure that you're connecting with the domestic market. And that can be even in quite subtle ways. I've got a screenshot here of a UK client of ours. At the top, they operate in the UK and in the US. And this is a screenshot of their homepage. And you can see on the top, you're in Indianapolis in a US environment. There's FedEx trucks things and things like that. And the bottom screen is actually their UK website. And look, they're driving on the left-hand side of the road. As you do in the UK. So, these are just subtle tweaks. You're not really changing your website very much, but you're adapting it to your local buyer persona in order to engage with them, to connect with them, so that they say, oh, that's a UK website. I'm a UK client, so this must be the right place to be. And it's interesting also looking at that buyer persona and how they react to things. And one of the things you can do on social media so well is to test that reaction and see. Now, this is a screenshot from a Facebook ad, actually, we ran for a client, and it's pretty well the same ad. Okay, it's, one language or another language and different keywords and things, but it was posted at the same time, they're both run on Facebook. And one for the UK, we got over 1,000 engagements. We were really pleased because the UK could be a bit frosty, to say the least. Mexico, we got 20,000 likes, oh yes, please, love it, thumbs up, all kinds of things. So, we were like, whoa, blown out, man. But if we look a little bit further, so there we can see the UK and Mexico performing very, very differently in terms of that buyer persona. But if you look a bit underneath that, you can see other nuances as well. So the top bar chart is Mexico, the one at the bottom is the UK. The blue and the red are those likes and shares and yes please, and the yellow and the green are conversions. They're like, where do I buy this and how much does this cost, and that sort of thing. So those are the conversions. And what's interesting for us is that while Mexico had 20,000 versus 1,000, the actual conversion levels are very similar. This means that it takes 20 times the engagement, as it were, in Mexico to get the same number of conversions through an online marketing effort. So that's just an example of how the buyer persona can differ in different markets, and you need to be aware of those things as you develop your strategies. One of the things we're seeing, and the internet is always a changing place. So one of the things that we watch very carefully is what's going on in sales. How are people engaging in sales? How is it changing? And sales, I think, propelled by the pandemic, a lot of those online trends that Andrew was talking about earlier, a lot of them got really accelerated because of the pandemic. And so that whole, online world just a turbocharge, as it were. so that we've seen this acceleration into a digital first. And if we look at a lot of millennials who are now coming up into their sort of, mid 30s, 40s, and are at the buy, they're the ones taking the decisions these days. They are very much digital natives, and they have perhaps a little bit of a reluctance to engage sometimes face-to-face with a salesman. They would rather do the research first. They will check online. They'll go and look at all the different posts. They'll check the competitors. They'll check, but they're checking online first, and they're buying online first. So there's a couple of big things: digital first, omni-channel, and very, very, very customer-centric. So this digital first that we talked about, these are just some stats by Gartner, looking at sort of by 2025, the chapter was next is tomorrow. 80% of all B2B interactions for sales will take place in the digital world first. That's sort of, just a statement from Gartner, but I think worth thinking about. And then in terms of those B2B buyers that I mentioned, again, those millennials and so on, that's the new workforce coming in. These are very much the decision makers of today and tomorrow, very much the digital natives as well. They will look to see the online solution before picking up a telephone, before saying yes to a meeting. They will want to see first the online possibility. And finally, this whole notion of omni-channel. It's about being where your customer is. That rather chart that Andrew showed earlier of all those different arrows. It's hard to know where and we know that they're online, but where are they online? Are they on WhatsApp? Are they on Facebook? Are they on their website? Are they going on e-commerce? Where are they all? So you have to be very flexible about figuring out which channel fits your prospective buyer best. Where do they see the most trusted buyer, and where do they have the most trust and credibility for you as your brand? So again, this whole omni-channel approach is one of the key trends that we're seeing on that as well. And with that, where are your buyers? I said that omni-channel approach. If you're looking in terms of the search, there's like sort of 6 things I would say that you need to be looking at: Google or search engines in general, localized websites, social media, the B2B platforms, which are increasingly important for the B2B markets, and act also as a type of search engine, many of them. Trade shows, whether that's virtual, hybrid, or in person, and increasingly, the majority of the big trade shows are hybrid events, and then individual events. All of these are different ways of looking and engaging with your buyers that you can do with an online engagement. For us, the overall baseline is your website. And we feel that your website should be your best ever sales rep, working 24/7, 365 days a year, and not taking any coffee breaks. So, make sure that your website is working hard for you. Bring it into the marketing meetings. Make sure your website is sitting there on the table as you talk about your sales clients. What should be happening on your website at the same time as you're going out on trade missions. A couple of big pointers we would suggest: making sure that your landing page is really, really up to speed. It's one of the most important pages of your website for your prospective buyers and for engaging with existing clients, but especially for prospective buyers. Making sure your landing page is up to speed, refresh, relevant. So especially if you are going on any trade missions or trade shows coming up, landing page is the right thing to have. And then obviously the very structured social media approach. And it's all about really the structure and the calendar and the analytics. Those are the 3 key components of any social media approach. Finally, I just want to leave you this one little tip. Something that we're seeing again and again and again is the power of video. And we talked a little bit about Mexico and the Latin American markets. If you think in the States that you look at a lot of videos and you check the videos out of your websites, Latin America blows it out of the water. The reactivity and the engagement with video is very, very striking if you're looking at the Latin American markets, but also the Asian markets as well. So that's just a little tip. And I'm just before we leave off on takeaways, and there's a lot of questions that have come in as well. My last poll, if any of you are interested in learning more about online marketing, and this is also a way for us to know whether we should tailor our events more towards online marketing or a deep dive into certain aspects or certain fields. If you want us to talk more about what it means to do social marketing, social media marketing, or organic, and so on. So let us know, and that way we can also plan for next future webinars. And again, thank you very much indeed for all that enthusiastic voting for your responses. Right, closing that, and just sort of finalizing, just sort of the takeaways, next steps, and then some Q&A time as well. I think in terms of our takeaways, we really wanted to highlight a few points. The first is very much that the world is online, and just to remind you of those stats that Andrew was saying earlier. So out of nearly 8 billion people on the planet, nearly 5 billion are using the internet every day for an average of nearly 7 hours a day. And of those nearly 5 billion, 4.5 billion are using social media. If you're a small mid-cap company, this is good news for you. You know where your clients, your prospective clients, your next generation prospective clients, you know where they are and you know how to find them. The next takeaway that we really would like to emphasize is this importance of your website. It should be your best sales rep, domestically and internationally. It's not a mountain to climb. It's something that is within reach of small mid-cap companies these days. And we really think you should be able to punch above your weight with your website. Finally, if there's, we're here to help in any way we can, and this is our focus. This is what we do. We do internet-enabled business tools, so websites and online marketing, and we have these online global programs for you. If they can be of any help, let us know. Finally, our views as there's always time to learn more, always time to keep up on the latest things. Our website has a ton of resources that you can download for free and share. If you go to the resources section, there's in all forms, infographics, blogs, live stream, webinars, white papers, everything possible in all kinds of different forms that you want. And then if anyone has an interest in some of the things that we pulled together for today's webinar, please have some here. Then finally, let's have a few questions that have come in. So there's actually been quite a few. I'm actually going to start with one for Andrew, which is how do I know for the online global programs, which states have grants? Andrew, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, sorry, trying to get my camera to work here. It's not working with me, but yeah, a good question on grants available. Obviously, there's a lot of grants that are that are spread throughout the U.S. There's the federally known STEP grant, but I mean, you're going to find out a lot of information through the economic development agencies, but also through our website, IBT.ONL. We've got on all of our state pages, as Susanna shared, the map of states that we work with and we partner with. On all of those state web pages, we've got information regarding those grants. So you're welcome to take a look, see if your state is involved, and of course, if it is, we've got the information there listed.
Okay. There's one also, which I'm still sort of puzzling over a bit. It says, if you're in a distributor model, are you setting the website as an informational resource or selling directly? And my personal response to this is that's your choice. You can do both with your website. And I don't see that there need be a conflict of interest with your distributor, with your local distributor. You could have a website which has an e-commerce functionality in the market while still supporting the distributor in that market. That's really up to you and the distributor to work out. But Jonathan, I don't know if you have a thought on that one.
Yeah, and I agree. It could be either or could be both. It's really dependent on you, and it's dependent on how do you have what are your relationships with your distributors and how are they set up. My personal relationship with our distributors is that if we don't know who the end customer is, I can't support you, because at the end of the day, people are going to try to make an end run around their distributors anyway, because they're going to want direct access to you. So the way that we've always set up our distributorships is, if the distributor is open and honest with us on who the end user is, if that end user comes to us, we say, oh no, you need to buy through that particular distributor. We do have some distributors that say, hi, I don't want you to know who I'm selling to. And that's just the way it is. I'm protecting my customers. Well, that's fine. But the problem is I can't protect the distributor at that point. If the end user comes to me and says, hey, I need a quote, this is the application and everything, internally, we're going to quote it. So really, it's up to the company and your distributor relationship and how you have it structured. I've always been, we should be open and honest. It should be a two-way street. But you have some distributors that maybe have been burned in the past, or maybe you've been burned in the past by a distributor, and you may want it one way, they may want it another. But you can have it any way you want it. I mean, remember, it's your particular product or service that you're selling globally, and it's your distributor. So, that's a decision that you're going to have to make internally. And a lot of that's going to go with the culture of the company and how you have your relationships with these distributors set up.
Absolutely. Andrew, this one for you as well, which is just which of the markets that you're seeing growth in for demand in online tools? Like, where are we seeing new websites being built?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a question that ever changes. That's for sure. I think I mean, Canada and Mexico are the top two that you see time and time again, but the ones that I think are starting to creep up are Southeast Asia. We're seeing a lot of Thailand, Indonesia. Just trying to think of others that are Vietnam as well, Singapore. Certainly a lot of demand for a lot of Asian markets, but typically it's Canada, Mexico, Latin America. Those are kind of the three holding points for some of our clients at the moment.
Yeah. I would maybe add to that as well. We've traditionally seen a lot of demand for websites in China. That China's environment has changed so much on the online market. The firewall has grown ever thicker in the last few years, and I think that there's a change in relationship between, for example, the U.S. and China, and the rest of the world and China, has meant that some investment has been pulled out. Nevertheless, we're seeing U.S. companies actually increase the number of websites they have in China in order to keep some kind of presence there. I think that's quite an interesting thing as well that's we've seen. Just another one as well, which is on international, which kind of e-commerce platforms work best, which I think is a great question. So in terms of e-commerce, Shopify used to be so-so. I think they've really improved. They've now got a really good international presence and international support as well across a lot of markets. So we're seeing a lot of Shopify going internationally, and that's doing well. And then our personal favorite is more sort of a WordPress with a WooCommerce plugin. Those work very well as well. But you would caution on content management systems, be careful of the ones you choose. Not all of them work very well internationally. So that's maybe a point to draw as well. Good. I'm going to sort of draw it up to a close, keeping it just under the hour. I wanted to give a big shout out to Jonathan and to Advanced Super Abrasives as an amazing company, and just watching them grow has been such a delight for us. And anything we can do to support and help them has been really encouraging and terrific for us. So Jonathan, a big thank you to you and your team at Advanced Super Abrasives. And Andrew, thank you as always for stepping in and helping to talk about online global programs, website localization, online marketing. And most of all, thank you all for joining us today. It's hard being on these Zoom calls and webinar calls and so on. So we appreciate your time very much and hope to see you all online and in person as soon as possible. Thank you all very much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone.